Big rally tonight. Big rally tonight for Judge Roy Moore. Stephen K. Bannon will be there. Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty will be there. Judge Roy Moore will be there, obviously, and we hope. But another man who will be there joins me now in our makeshift studio here in Point Clear, Alabama. It's Mr. Brexit, Nigel Farage. Nigel, welcome to the show.
Good morning, everybody.
Absolutely extraordinary to see you here. I walked downstairs early on this morning to go and have a cigarette before the show. And who do I bump into out there?
Well, I was up bright and early, and it's...
We were just having a few technical problems here, Nigel. Let's try that again.
Okay, are you getting me now?
Yeah, we're getting you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Yeah, so what I bumped into you downstairs, outside here. What are you doing here?
Well, as Steve Bannon said, I should come and help Judge Roy Moore, and I tell you what's interesting. If you think back to last year, we had the big Brexit vote. We had Trump becoming the president. I mean, it truly was the revolution of 2016. But here we are a year on, and what's happening? What's happening is the establishment are fighting back. They're fighting back in Britain, doing everything they can to delay Brexit, to water it down. And what's happening on this side of the pond? Well, you know what? From day one, with the judges to members of Congress, people are trying to stop the Trump project. And I tell you the funny thing. What's stopping Brexit? What's stopping Trump putting through his agenda? It's not the enemy. It's not the other side. It's people who say they're on our side, but in reality, they're not actually conservatives. They are part of the establishment. And that is why, to get us all back on course, we've got to get conservative campaigns mobilized, and we've got to get people into elected positions who are not prepared to compromise on their principles for the sake of their career.
And of course, the Senate Leadership Fund pumping millions and millions of dollars behind Luther Strange, up to $30 million now being spent, maybe about 15 million of that coming from the Senate Leadership Fund. All these things come with strings attached. This is Mitch McConnell's guy. This is Mitch McConnell's money. And these things tend to come with strings attached. I don't believe for a second that Luther Strange will be somebody who behaves in a way that is, that has the president and the MAGA agenda's interests at heart. He will be the archetypal swamp monster. You look at somebody like Judge Roy Moore, on the other hand, spending his life being a pariah, being an outcast.
I know that feeling.
About that,
I know that feeling well. Would you know something, Raheem? I mean, I've been inside the European Parliament now for over 18 years. So I've watched politics. I've watched the way national governments operate. I've watched the way the European Parliament has operated. And I tell you what, after all these years, and I can say this now that I'm a veteran, I don't trust anybody that's an insider. I don't trust anybody that's a careerist. I want people who've done things in life themselves, who've got their own interests, and who are not beholden to anybody. And that is why, when the chance came here to support Roy Moore, I was happy to do so.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have calls for Mr. Brexit, Nigel Farage, 866-957-2874 is the number, 866-95-PATRIOT. Nigel, a lot of people getting very upset about this NFL situation. I don't know if you've seen it, but
yeah.
You're probably traveling most of yesterday. But again, for yet another week, NFL players taking a knee, refusing to stand for their national anthem. Obviously, the defenders of it saying, oh, they're just exercising their freedom of speech and all of this sort of stuff. But we know where this started with Colin Kaepernick and this guy who said that the US flag represents bad things and the national anthem represents bad things, and now obviously infecting a real staple, I think a real staple of American culture, especially on the conservative end of the spectrum, national football. And people are calling in and saying they are cancelling their subscriptions, they are throwing out their jerseys, their paraphernalia, and President Trump is out there. He's one of the only people out there, by the way. They all say, oh, we support President Trump. Well, where's Paul Ryan talking about this? Where's Mitch McConnell talking about this?
Well, they're too embarrassed, aren't they? I mean, don't forget that amongst career politics in the West, patriotism has been a dirty word. They're all too ashamed to show it. It doesn't sort of go down well at smart Washington dinner parties. They'd rather sneer at the flag than they would support it, and that's the truth of it. The only thing I would say is that Trump has got a lot on his plate at the moment, and he does seem to get involved in an awful lot of arguments. I don't think he's wrong for one moment, and I would say this. We've had similar debates in Britain. We've had times when the England football team soccer team have been lined up before games, and one or two people have appeared to be somewhat reluctant to sing the national anthem, and you know what? They've been slammed by the British media. just the same as is happening here. So I think Trump is right. And hey, there needs to be a bit of a kickback, doesn't there? I mean, just look at what's happened here in the last couple of months. Statues being torn down, attempts to rewrite history. I mean, this is madness. So Trump is right, but I would just ask the question, hasn't he got rather more important things at the moment to focus on?
Yeah, perhaps so. I mean, I was saying before you came on in the first hour, I was talking about how it was galling, especially to me, to see this taking place at Wembley Stadium, because that's where some of the NFL games were being played yesterday. Yeah. And I remember even at Wembley Stadium, I think only just about a year or a year and a half ago, it was still not okay for the English national soccer team to be wearing poppies as a mark of remembrance, for our military heroes and our veterans and the people who gave up their lives to save our country, and indeed other countries too. And on the other hand, they say that's not okay to do because that's a political statement. But then you have this happening at Wembley Stadium and nobody says anything.
Well, what the poppy thing shows you, and of course, it is the symbol of sacrifice, massive sacrifice in 2 world wars. And, it isn't actually, in many ways, it isn't nationalistic. It's just about people who've suffered, and some are still suffering, of course, today. What was interesting about the poppy thing is that, we were told that it was wrong to wear them. The international soccer bodies wouldn't allow it. Tell you what was interesting. We dug in. The English authorities dug in, refused to back down, and guess what? They've won now, and now they can wear poppies at the appropriate time of the year. All of which shows that if you want the right things to happen, you do have to stand up.
And that just happened within, the last 24 hours?
That's right. Yesterday we got that judgment. So it does kind of link in very neatly with this.
Incredibly timely. A lot of tweets about you this morning, Nigel.
Oh, there always are.
Lee in Wyoming saying, now here's a true warrior, Nigel Farage with Raheem Kassam on Sirius XM Patriot. Kevin saying, as usual, Nigel Farage nails it. Coming to you guys on the phone lines now, 866-95-PATRIOT. Let's go to Brent in Georgia, who's on line 5. Brent, you've got Nigel Farage, you've got Raheem Kassam. Good morning.
Good morning, Raheem. Yeah, give me 1 second. I apologize. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up the NFL. I normally watch about 20 games a year, times probably 5 to 10 buddies of mine. So that's 120. That's about 100 games that are being watched. And instead, what we're doing is we're going to ride motocross, or we're watching MMA, we're going out to Vegas. So we're spending our money, we're spending our time doing red-blooded American things. But the NFL isn't getting it. They're not getting our money. And I hope it hurts them. And they're not going to learn their lesson. What's going to happen is other sports are going to come up and get popular, and that's where we're going to spend our money.
What about college football, Brent? Is that appealing to you?
Not really.
No,
because on a college football team, you might have maybe 4 people who are great football players. But on an NFL football team, every player is extremely talented. So the game itself, the professional football game, is just amazing to watch. I mean, the linemen are, these guys are 300 pounds and they can run a 40-yard dash in under 4 seconds. Or,
wow.
And that's an amazing
Sounds like Nigel.
being. Yeah, that's an amazing human being. And I coached youth football with quite a few former NFL players, and they are truly freaks of nature. They're fun to watch. They're smart. I had to coach in youth football. I coached with former linebackers and coached with former wide receivers. I love the game. I mean, I can't tell you how much I love football, but they will not get a dime of my money.
Well, there you go. Brent in Georgia, thank you so much for that call here. Look, people are turning off, Nigel. And just last week we learned that a couple of dozen million people, I think it was just over 24 million people, according to Variety magazine, have cancelled their cable subscriptions because they don't want to pay for ESPN anymore. They don't want to pay for CNN. The way they get money is not from viewers tuning in and advertising revenue. It's the carriage fees are built into the cable subscription that you buy in the first place. And so people have got wise to that now, and they are cancelling en masse their cable subscriptions. They're stopping going to football games now. Here's the question I have, though. Isn't this in a way what the left wants? They want they want people to lose the things that they have enjoyed for so long. It's a win-win for them. If people don't watch football, they win. If people do watch football, they're getting this political stuff and they win as well. So
yeah,
what are
it's
people
kind
to
of
do?
it's almost like the sort of new cultural revolution, isn't it? I mean, the Chinese had it in Mao's time, and that's now what the left want to do with us today. I think it's interesting what you say about cable subscription, and people are beginning to vote with their feet. I mean, in a sense, these are all little battles that reflect what we went through last year. If you think about the big dividing lines of Brexit and Trump last year, it was people standing up and saying, do you know what? We've simply had enough of this. We want to do things properly. We want to be proud of who we are. We believe in nation state. We believe in the flag. And don't you tell us we can't be. So kind of these arguments, these debates are still going on. My one observation is the left are much worse now than they ever were before Brexit and Trump. It's almost as if they feel they must punish us for being so stupid to stand up for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know a little bit about the standing up to big media conglomerates as well. See, I always say to this audience, the reason it's so important that we have Breitbart London, the reason we talk about international news so much as well, is because these things are dovetailing all across the Western world. You had a bit of a run-in with the BBC.
Oh, goodness me. Well, let me explain to people if I can briefly. So after the Brexit vote, about 2 months on, there was a news report that a Polish man had died in a street in a new town in England, not too far from London, a place called Harlow. The story, as it was reported, was a group of English youths had attacked this guy and he died. In fact, some commentators on the BBC, which don't forget is our state-sponsored television and radio, some commentators said he'd been beaten to death in the street. It was an unprovoked attack. It was all because Brexit had stirred up terrible emotions in the country. And there was an interview on a flagship BBC programme in which a friend of the Polish man who died was interviewed. The interviewer from the BBC was talking to him. He said, well, what's caused this? The Polish fella said, I don't want to name names. The BBC guy said, oh, go on, name names. Well, it's Nigel Farage who has caused this. Nigel Farage has blood on his hands. Well, that, of course, went ballistic. 400 newspaper articles. I mean, just wall to wall that I had caused hatred in our country and I was directly responsible for this death. Do you know what? A year on, it turns out the Pole who died and his friend were extremely drunk. They saw a group of youths in the high street. One of them was black, and they went up and racially abused him. They were menacing, and a 15-year-old kid in self-defense punched the guy who fell over, banged his head, and died.
Wow.
It had nothing to do with race hate at all. And I am now demanding that the BBC apologise, not just for the harm they did to me, but the harm they did to my family and my kids and everything. And if they don't pay me the compliment of at least saying we're sorry, we got this wrong, then I will refuse next year to pay my BBC licence fee. And that is, in the UK, mandatory.
Yep.
And you can go to prison for not paying it. Well, that's how strongly I feel.
Yep, and a lot of people, again, refusing to pay their BBC TV licence fees, opting out of watching BBC television or live television at all, just as people over here are cutting their cable subscriptions. Let's go to Lou in Connecticut, who's on line one. Lou, good morning.
This is an unbelievable treat to hold Nigel on simultaneously. He said something very important that I was going to point out. I've been one of the most critical people on this program about the president, but for good intellectual reason. What Nigel said was he questioned the efficacy of the president getting involved in something right now when he's under such attack and when he's got so many balls in the air. I think it's ill-advised. But it was probably a spontaneous thing, I think. I'm not sure it's a full D chess move.
No, but isn't the point? I mean, Trump is that kind of guy. Trump is an impulsive man in many ways. He's an emotional man in many ways. He feels strongly about stuff, and if he thinks it's right, he says it. And I completely understand that. And compared to sort of cagey, cautious career politicians, it's refreshing. My point was, he's got some pretty big battles on the go at the moment, and he seems to get involved in. He seems to get himself involved in more and more and more. And there should be other. And Raheem made this point earlier. There should be other people, the Paul Ryans, etc., should be out there leading this charge. And actually, the truth is, they're in hiding.
They are in hiding, but you know who's been out there on this, Lou? Judge Roy Moore's been out there on this. You don't see others out there on this. You know, where are the people who demand Donald Trump's fealty? They don't give anything in return. Lou, where are they?
People in his own cabinet should be stepping up to the plate as well.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
You know, again, I'm critical about this, yes, but he is correct. And I will defend the president. I'm tired of the white sheets, white supremacist crap that's coming out of the mouths of congressmen. Even, you know, Gary Cohn and his own daughter leaks criticism to the press on similar issues. And when the president's right, I'm going to step up to the plate and say he's right. I unplugged May 9th, believe it or not, in large part because of the sissification of Fox News. And I watch very little television. If it's television, it's internet only, obviously, because I unplugged.
Right.
But I won't patronize Ben and Jerry's. I won't patronize Kellogg's. And I think it's high time. I certainly won't watch NFL, obviously, but it's high time that we exercise our boycott privileges. You have people on talk radio. They say, "Oh no, we don't do that." No,
we do that, Lou. Lou, we do that actually, and we have a really proud history of being discriminatory about what we choose to engage with out there. And I think whoever says to you that we don't do things like that, maybe we don't organize mass boycotts and set up websites and stuff like that, but we actually do that. We vote with our wallets. And Lou in Connecticut, I'm glad you do that too.